Hello, beautiful people. To God be the glory. Welcome to Truth and Hope. I am excited today. Our guest is Mr. Chuck Brown. Thank you for coming, Mr. Brown.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. I call myself just a kid from Baltimore that found out a little bit about who I was and wanted to just become something great. I was raised by a single mother, raised by a bunch of women in my family, aunts, grandmother, and they taught me how to be a gentleman. And so hopefully I've made them proud. But I'm a writer. I'm a director, a filmmaker. I also publish books, my own books, as well as help other people with theirs. And then in my spare time, I just like to enjoy life, just my family and friends and creating opportunities for other people to live their dreams. So that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. I see here we have books, and this one is titled Devil in the Mirror. Can you tell us a little about this book?
Sure. Yeah, Devil in the Mirror, Overcoming the Enemy's Attack. It's a part of my testimony. It was at a time when I was going through some difficult situations where I actually found myself arrested and separated from my family. I was going through a deep depression, and I didn't even know what depression was at the time. And so in that period, I started to write myself out of depression. I shared exactly where I was at the time, but I didn't want to just keep it where I was. I wanted people to know how I came out of it. So
Awesome.
when I say devil in the mirror, it came from a time when I looked in the mirror and I saw more of the devil than I saw of Christ. And so I say overcoming the enemy's attack because I was under a spiritual attack as well as a physical attack, emotional attack. I was just being attacked. And I wrote this book to share with people what I went through, but also to let them know no matter where you are right now, you don't have to stay there. And so this is one of my prized possessions of my writing. And I've written a million things from poems to short stories to movies to letters. But this is one of the things that moves me the most because it's touched so many people's lives. I've had people who were on the verge of committing suicide that didn't because they read my testimony. I've had people who called me and said, I was about to leave my wife until I read what you and your wife went through. And if y'all could get through what y'all went through, I can at least try. And so I'm just pleased that God would use me to help other people through this book.
Oh, that's amazing. So, when you began to write this book, Devil in the Mirror, to get to that point to realize to look in the mirror, you say you saw more of the devil. Mm-hmm. So, to make that connection, that to leap into, let me write this, what was so darkened in your life that made you knew that you had to write this to share, to let others people know that, as you said, where you are, mm-hmm. you don't have to stay there. So during that point in your life, are you willing to share a little bit more in depth or?
Sure, yeah, I don't have a problem at all. I tell people my life is an open book, and literally I write books and people just open it and they find out a little bit more about me. The main thing was I was realizing that I wasn't who I thought I was, and I wasn't who I was trying to portray to other people. And so I wanted to be this perfect guy because that's how most people knew me at that time. They didn't know my background, they didn't know my experiences, they didn't know where I came from, the things that I did. And I was living in Pittsburgh at the time where I married my wife. She was born and raised in Pittsburgh. And so by the time I got there, I was saved. I was a little polished. Everything looked good. We had this cute little family. Everybody thought we were perfect. And so I tried to upkeep that for the sake of the appearance. And there were some issues I was dealing with that I never talked about because it would just violate everything else that people, thought of me and thought of my family and my experiences. So I kind of suppressed it. But in this particular situation, I was accused of some things that were false. I was accused of, by a woman, of assault. And She basically just created this whole scenario that ended up getting me arrested. When that happened, it ruined everything that I thought I was at that time and that people thought I was. So at the time, I was an associate pastor at a church. I was coaching a girls' high school basketball team. I was athletic director at that school. I was on community boards. I was working for one of the newspapers. I was mentoring people. Wow. So all of those things just imploded at the same time. And so everything I knew was stripped away from me. And so I had to take this deep look at myself and ask myself, who are you? And so when I looked in that mirror, I didn't like what I saw. I couldn't even see the facade that I had put up for so long to other people. It was no longer there. And so I had to take a step way back and say, who are you? And then I had to say to God, who are you? Like, this is who you called me to be. This is what you told me. How did I get here?
Wow.
And so I know there are a lot of people who get in situations, and that's the question that they ask, how did I get here?
Yes.
And then once you get there, it's like, well, how do I get out of here? And so for me, it was this journey. For the first time in my life, I was all alone. I didn't have my wife, I didn't have my kids, I didn't have my mother, I didn't have my father, I was alone. And so when I was reaching out for people, all the people that I expected to be there to help me, they weren't there. Wow. I went to church after church after church after church seeking for help, and they turned their back on me. And so now I'm hurt by the people that I served in ministry with. And so that was a deep cut. And so I had to get into this confined space by myself, or so I thought. And while I was asking God, where are you? These are the things that you said. Like, why is this happening? And then God had to step in and say, I have you exactly where I needed you to be, with nobody but me, where nobody can get the glory but me. And so by doing that, I had to depend on Him to pull me out of that situation. And so I started to write. Writing is my fallback for everything. I could write. If I can't talk to you, I can write. Awesome. And so that's what I did. And I shared my experiences. I talked about the depression. I talked about the deliverance, being in my mother-in-law's house, well, my in-laws' house, because my father-in-law was there as well, by myself while they're gone, and I'm just worshiping because nobody wanted me to come into their church because it was creating a problem. And that's where God was dealing with me. So it was just this whole story that I had to share so people could know, yeah, you're not by yourself. You're not going through this alone. Like, I'm not there with you, but I've been through some things that I can relate to. And so I just wanted to share my experiences and help people change their lives.
Awesome. That's amazing. So listen to your story. Sometimes God have to strip us so Absolutely. We can see who we really are. And you took the initiative to know that you didn't like who you were. So it cleansed you in your writing. It was purifying you, would you say?
Absolutely.
Amen. Your writing purified you.
And I share that a lot with the clients that I work with. I'm a writing coach as well, and I help other people publish their books, and I share that with them. This is a healing experience in writing. You know, not everybody is comfortable with sharing their stories, even on paper or writing. But if you are, then it's a great way to just release stress, to kind of have that healing, that therapy time. It's very important to find some avenue to do that. And for me, it's been writing. And so I continue to do that, you know, even now when I go through different things, because again, you know, I look a little bit polished. I got a nice jacket on, but that doesn't mean I don't go through things. And so now I recognize when I'm going in a different path. And so what do? I reach out to people who care and love me. I write. I find ways to identify those particular situations, and then I try to get out of it as quick as possible.
To God be the glory. To God be the glory. I see we have Dear Depression. So I'm sure that this kind of relates to the devil in the mirror. If you wrote many books here, as you can see, praise God. And I really appreciate you sharing your story to let others know. So Mr. Brown, tell me, how did you go from writing your books into filming? You have wrote quite a few books. How did you get to that level?
Well, when I was younger, I knew that I was going to be a writer. I was probably like 4 or 5 years old when I told my mother I wanted to be a writer. And so from the time I was 4 or 5 to probably 15 or 16, I used to write things and stick them in my pocket and say, one day I'm going to put this in a movie. One day I'm going to write a book about this. And so I kept all of those pieces of paper, napkins, receipts, whatever I could, I would share, the different thoughts that I had. And so one day I revisited that, it was a duffel bag that I had a bunch of keepsakes in, and I found some of those writings, and I said, it's time to make a movie. And at the time I was mentoring some people at my photography studio who one of them was in film school. And so they had access to equipment, and I was like, man, let's make a movie. Okay. So we did, and then that experience just opened me up to do more. So since then, we did my first short film 10 years ago in 2009. And it just catapulted me to want to do more. It was like a rush. We had so much fun. It was one of the best days of my life because we laughed and we created. And then to be able to see it come to life, it was amazing. So fast forward 10 years, 11 years, it's been amazing. Probably have done 35 or so short films, a few feature films, documentaries. It's just amazing to be able to create something and have people to enjoy it. So I just look forward to doing even more.
Well, that's a blessing, and I too have had opportunity to be in one of your short films,
Yes.
which I've enjoyed. Stand Up, and it was amazing the way you operate and implement everyone into their rightfully place. And I just want to ask you, in writing the books, also in doing the films, how have that affected your personal life with your family? Did it cause any hardship, or can you
Yeah.
tell us a little about that?
No, we have a very creative family. Arts and entertainment and music and all of those things are very important to all of us. My wife also writes. She's an actress. She's a dancer, although she hasn't danced a lot lately, but she's a dancer, and she loves the arts. So we go to ballet, we see plays. So we've always been integrated that way. My kids, my daughter just published her first book. She writes music. My son performs. So we're very creative as a family, and we're all aspiring to do more. And so for me, this was a way of expressing myself creatively, but also incorporating other people into it, because it's not just about one person or one thing. It's about creating opportunities for other people. I tell all people all the time that I want to see people dream bigger, live their dreams, and impact their world. And so that's what I try to do when I create projects. And you mentioned stand-up, about bullying. You mentioned the Dear Depression book. So I try to do things that are socially conscious to have an impact on people, and not just about entertaining. My company, Expected in Entertainment, our motto is to entertain, educate, and empower. So if we're not entertaining you, we're probably educating you. If we're not educating you, we're probably empowering you. So we try to do that with all the things that we're working on, whether it's a book, a film, a TV show, a radio show, whatever it is. We try to incorporate all of those things. In our family, we try to do that as well, because we want to represent Christ in a positive way, but we also want to represent the family name.
Awesome. So it seems like you really come from a long way, and that's amazing. So with that being said, I'm curious of how, with the books, the film, the family, and you're talking about your past life also, how did you regain the trust and the people's back? Because look like you've done very well.
Well, I realize, and this is probably, I don't know how to say it and not sound like it's insensitive, but I don't care, because I know what it's like to be alone. So the threat of someone leaving me or not being there for me, that doesn't bother me anymore, because I've been there already. And I know that I've come out of it better being by myself. So if someone wants to leave or someone wants to get away, that's fine. Because I know, number one, God's got me. And number two, I'm going to be all right. But to answer your question, I did try to do everything the proper way. With ministry, for example, when I was sat down, coming through the whole situation, going through trial, all of those things, I went through the proper channels. I did everything I was told to do, but I was still treated differently. It's okay. In my marriage, we were separated for a year and a half, 2 years. It was a process of regaining trust. I talk about some of that in my other book, Baking Pies and Making Love. We'll talk about that some other time. But I talk about regaining trust and getting through difficult situations. One of the things that you find in a situation when you're separated is that you both learn some things about yourself and then about the other person. So we both had work to do in order to come back together. And at some points, I didn't think we were going to make it. She didn't think we were going to make it. And we just worked. And we said, okay, do we want this or not? Are we willing to work for it or not? Are we going to go our separate ways or not? And so I also talk about in the book, you have to have those honest conversations. Because if I'm no good for myself, I can't be any good for you. And if we can't be good together, then maybe it's best we just go our separate ways and just love each other from afar. So we've had those difficult conversations at multiple times in our marriage. And one of the things that we ask ourselves is, do you want to start over? Like, no, I don't want to start over. And, you think about the pros and cons of everything. And for us, our pro has always been, let's try. Let's not quit now. Like, we've come too far. If we're able to overcome all these things, why give up now? And so that doesn't say we're perfect. We have our issues. We're still growing. So we're going to continue to do that, but it's work. It's definitely work. So I tell, couples all the time, like, if you really want it, work for it. If you don't want it, keep doing something else and it'll be over, So, and that's not what I want. I want my family. I want my marriage. And so anytime we come up against different things like that, we take a step back and we say, okay, what is it that we want? How do we get to the next level? What do we do next? And so that's what we try to do. And it's, like I said, we're still learning. We're still growing. We've been married for 24 years, and it's still a learning process. But I tell people, too, that living things grow, and growing things live. So the minute you stop growing, the minute you start dying.
Wow.
And so we're going to always live, and we're going to always grow.
Wow, that is amazing. And you have my blessing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's amazing. Okay, so what else you're looking forward to doing? Seems like you've done quite a bit here. So what are 2020 looking like for you?
2020 is going to be amazing. Everybody is going with the catchphrase 2020 vision or vision 2020, to play on words. We have some amazing things coming up in 2020. We have a couple of feature films that will be coming out in 2020. Same Spot will be premiering in February, so you can put that out there. Yes. And then we have 2 other feature films that we'll be shooting in 2020, as well as a couple of documentaries. So it's going to be a very busy year. And of course, I'll still be helping writers, working with as many people as I can to, again, help them to live their dreams and impact their world. Because I realize that I can't get to everybody. I have a small group of people that God has assigned me to. But you have a small group of people that God assigned you to. So if I can help you reach those people, and then we help some other people reach their people, we're making a greater impact. And so that's what it's about. So 2020 is definitely going to be a year of vision. It's going to be a year of manifestation. And it's going to be a year of impact.
Amen. I received that for myself.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. So I thank you.
My pleasure. Thank
for
you so much.
being so honest and just letting it all out, letting other people know that where there's life is hope.
Absolutely.
And as long as you continue to live and to continue to progress and to fight for what you want, that you can have what you want.
Absolutely. and I'm going after everything God has for me.
Wow, that was deep. There you have it. Empowered by truth, motivated by hope. We will see you next time. You don't want to miss.